All right, my heart would start pounding. I start sweating. I start yelling at my wife and dog for no reason.
The dude couldn't play, and that was simple as that. But we knew that 2 years ago. The dude couldn't.
Isn't like proficient and like he isn't on his game, you can't start him week 1.
If you earn the spot and you're the better player, your ass should be playing. Period.
I would have it Carlton Davis on one side and Terrion Arnold on the other. Big week on the Detroit Lions news show. Coming after the bye week, we got the esteemed panel here. Walt, Russell, Ted Rath got a lot to talk about ahead of the Cowboys. But first and foremost, want to introduce everybody. Thanks everybody that's in the chat. Please feel free to leave your comments. I think the first talking point that we want to get into with Ted, a former strength coach and things like that, we want to talk about the injury to Frank Ragnow. We want to talk about potential risk of re-injury. I think the one thing that everybody knows, Ted, is that Frank Ragnow is the epitome of gritty, a perfect fit regarding Dan Campbell, an individual who really, a couple years ago played an NFL game with basically a fractured throat. And now a couple years later, battling the issue with the foot, still getting out there. And then against, a couple weeks ago, suffers a partially torn pec and still completes the game, does not leave the game. And you recognize that, even afterwards is pleading with Dan Campbell, I'm good, I want to get out there. Really harkens back to old school football of just like, hey, my job is to be out there and I'm going to do whatever. But I'm curious, based on your assessment now, hearing that he practiced and that Dan Campbell basically indicated that he's good to go. Is there a risk of injury? What does it tell you that he's back practicing when you hear that he's got a partially torn pec? Give us the scoop. Does he have a higher risk of re-injury, or with a partially torn pec based on him practicing, does that indicate that this looks like maybe a pain tolerance kind of thing?
Yeah, great question, John. I think as you first look at it, there's a couple of key indicators. Number one, he did finish the game. So you look at it from a complexity standpoint, the injury did not affect him to a point to where he couldn't physically punch, especially at that position. You're looking at a lot of components because at that position specifically, while you want to stay interior, you want to stay inside, the biggest risk that he's going to face is if he gets into what we call an abducted position. So if his arm gets extended out, that's a bad situation. That's a very bad scenario for him to where, based on dependent if it's the pec minor or the pec major, that's a big deal. So knowing the exact anatomical region and the exact muscle that was injured in the disruption. So we grade injuries like these. When you look at soft tissue injuries, we grade them. We give them a grade from 1, 2, or 3. So if we look at this, grade 3 being the most severe, it wasn't completely ruptured because it would have been surgical. So we know that that's positive. They can brace that. There's certain things that the sports medicine team can put into place to protect Frank, but they really need to keep him out of that abducted position because that's going to be his greatest risk. Now, within that, as an offensive lineman, you shouldn't be out in that position. Unfortunately, in the game of football, it's unpredictable. Sometimes you do get caught out of position, but he needs to really stay locked in, engage his back musculature. So all those things from a posterior standpoint, the rotator cuff, the latissimus, everything in your back, those big meaty muscles in the back, those have to help stabilize that pec, and that's going to take a lot of pressure off that front side for him. So is it the most significant thing? No. If I had a linebacker with this same exact injury, I'd honestly be a little bit more scared because as you approach that, there's a better chance that they're going to get caught extended in that abduction position because they have to make a tackle or they have to get outside of their frame. So Frank has to be conscientious of that. He's a smart guy, but you hit it on the head too, John. He's tough. And the guys I've been around, one's a former Detroit Lion. Dominic Raiola played that position for 14 years in Detroit. He's one of the toughest guys that I've literally ever been around. He missed 4 games in his career because of a thumb. That's all he missed. Jason Kelsey, who just retired. Those guys are tough, but you have to protect them from themselves. So the sports medicine staff, Dan Campbell, they have to take Frank for his word, but they have to make sure that they don't let him go out there unnecessarily and put himself at risk to further injure this. Knowing that, they're smart people. I think that he's in a good position, and I think he's smart enough to tell them when he's not.
Yeah, real fast before we talk about previewing the Cowboys, how wild was it that CD Deuce last year with a completely torn pectoral muscle made his way back into the postseason? Many people thought, whoa, what a significant injury that probably was going to cost him his season. How remarkable was it that he came back and was able to even participate and execute for the Lions in the postseason last year?
Insane. I think, once again, it just gives you an appreciation for the toughness of all these players. Football is not an easy sport. When you get to this level, they're going through car wreck after car wreck every single Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and then they repeat the process. Thankfully for the Lions, I think the bye week came at a very good time this year. But when you look at some of the guys that have played through significant injuries like that, they're tough and they care. I think that goes overlooked sometimes. People are just like, oh, it's the money. You know what? No, these guys bond in a locker room. They care about the city. They care about the fans. They get in that locker room and they get passionate because they're like, listen, I'm not missing this game. I know how important this is. And I know it's playoffs. We're gearing up. We're going to go all the way to the Super Bowl. That's the guy's mentality. And those are the types of guys that you want in your locker room. And once again, credit all day to Brad Holmes and the people in that personnel department. They have built that roster in Detroit with people that are tough, gritty, and just ready to defend each other, because football is the ultimate team sport. I want guys like that in my locker room, and they have that in Detroit right now.
Yeah, no doubt. It's been fascinating to see just how gritty this football team has become. You got now really the bye week coming at the perfect time. All 53 players, excluding those that are on IR, were available to practice, and now they're ready to go to tackle a Dallas Cowboy squad. Walt, I'm curious your first thoughts now going into this Cowboys matchup. How big is it? Your early thoughts on how the Lions shake out. It kind of feels like with the Cowboys dealing with some injuries, there's a lot more confidence this go around that maybe the Lions can beat the officials and the Cowboys on the road.
Yeah, definitely. I think we were a better team than Dallas last year, and I think we're significantly better this year than we were last year. Do we lack in a couple areas? Sure we do, but overall as a team, I think we're better than what we were last year. Dallas is a worse version overall, roster-wise, execution-wise, culture, health-wise. Everything is just not as good as it was last year, and it wasn't great last year as well. You know, you got Dak getting paid the money he got paid, and then immediately not having success as a team. That's got a cloud over the organization as well right now. And, you know, that if you look at it for what it is, man, Dallas, they don't run the ball well. They really haven't been able to run the ball well since Zeke left. Well, the early version of Zeke left. They can't stop the run. You know, they drafted Mozzie Smith out of Michigan. He was supposed to be the guy that stepped in and became that anchor of the middle of the defense. He's dealing with back injuries and such, and he's not looking like he's going to pan out for them right now. Lawrence is down. Parsons is doubtful last time I checked. Dan Quinn is no longer there for that defense. That's also something that people really aren't pointing to as much. Dan Quinn's now over in Washington having a hell of a lot of success early with his quarterback. So I think everything right now points towards Detroit beating Dallas. And it doesn't look good for Dallas, the fact that the two home losses they had this season, they got smashed in both of them. And the Saints did it on the ground, and the Baltimore Ravens did it on the ground. So I expect Detroit to walk right into Dallas. They know what's at stake. They're very aware of what happened last year. I think it still stings to these players and to this coaching staff, and they know exactly what they need to do to win. They know exactly what the Ravens did. They know exactly what the Saints did, and we do those things better than both of those teams.
Yeah, Ted, your thoughts. Lions, Cowboys.
Yeah, this one's personal for me. Obviously, the Dallas Cowboys, I've been very familiar with them over the years. I was just on a call with Dean Blandino a couple minutes ago, and I still vividly remember the 2014 playoff year. Jim Caldwell, we went in with a lot of momentum. We clearly dominated the game. We should have won. Had some phantom officiating in that game, I'll say that. Then they showed video footage of Blandino on Jerry Jones's party bus that week. So, you know, this is a personal one for me. I love the matchup, though. I think Walt hit it on the head. the Detroit Lions come out with an established running game, they're going to control the line of scrimmage. They'll control the clock. It'll open up so that Ben can marry the run and pass game, and then Jared can get out. He can run some play action, can get out in some of the bootleg game, and really stretch the field. I think you look at that. Defensively, they're coming back. Everyone's healthy at this point. The bye week did come at really a perfect time for the Detroit Lions. And now as they go into this, it's going to be a hostile environment. It gets loud there. The fans are probably a little bit disappointed right now with how the season is. There's no doubt about it. So if the Dallas Cowboys are in the game early, that's going to be a very hostile environment. If not, they could probably flip that crowd and get a little bit of a home field advantage. I think Detroit's going to travel well. It's a good stadium to go see a game. So we'll see how they show up. But I do think they have to establish the run game. Once they do that, it's going to open up so much offensively, and then Ben and Jared are going to get creative and go do what they do.
All right, Russell, your thoughts.
Oh man, I've been waiting for this game all year long. And you guys hit everything right there. They want to dominate the line of scrimmage. I want to see them be physical up front, and let's not get too creative with these play calls. It's like, look, we're gonna run right here, and there's nothing you're gonna do about it because we got Frank the Tank, and we want to run all over this team, control the clock, and don't let Dak Prescott kill you. You got Brian Branch back. We missed you so much last week. The secondary missed you so much last week. We are going to be very happy to have you in this. And please just don't let CeeDee Lamb go for $180 and 2 touchdowns. Please, defense, just contain them a little bit, run the football, control the clock, come out of Dallas with a win.
All right, we got to talk about it. Clearly, the Lions are going on the road to Jerry's World, AT&T Stadium. Ted, I definitely want to get your sense because I was on a call earlier today with Dave Burkett, and I asked him the question, which call was worse? Was it the crazy, picking up a flag against Brandon Pettigrew and all that? Dave Burkett, I asked him what call was worse, that or the miscommunication regarding the tackle reporting eligible last year. And David said that, look, when you watch the film, Stafford maybe could have thrown the ball to a wide open Calvin Johnson and understood that, hey, that play maybe should have gone to the biggest superstar possible. But you look at it and you say, I'm curious, what was your reaction when you saw how that shook out? I mean, you never really see that. A penalty was called just when you see it, it was probably a just call. It was pass interference, but they picked it up and literally overturned a pass interference, which I don't think I've ever seen since that occurred. And what to me makes that a little bit more stinging than what happened last year. Ted, that team with the defense that was there, that team could have made a serious run had they advanced past the first game against the Cowboys. What was your reaction then? And which call do you think was worse? Because clearly everybody knows that some weird stuff kind of tends to happen, typically in Lions games. But I know it's not an excuse, but the last couple times you look at it and you say some big calls that went against the Lions have happened against in matchups with the Cowboys.
100%. And John, first of all, I'm biased. I 100% admit that because I was standing on the field when it happened. But there's never in my career, I've been around football my entire life, I've never seen a more egregious call overturned in that fashion. They walked off the 10-yard penalty. They literally walked it off. They respotted the ball, and then they got together. Then they took it back, and we're all on the sideline. We're all confused. We're like, what the heck is happening? And we watched it, and you see the replays. You see it on the huge Jumbotron, and we're literally sitting there thinking, this is so clear and obvious. You're trying to yell. I said some very unfavorable things to the officials. I'm not proud to admit, but in the heat of the moment, I think that was one of the worst officiating moments in recent memory within the NFL. And it was crazy, but I think as you look at it, I also go to the point, number one, you said CJ was wide open. Calvin was wide open on that play. We did see it. So you look at that. There's so many different things that happen on every individual NFL play. There's 22 men running around. There's several officials. There's craziness happening. We could have hit CJ on that play and it could have ended very differently. But I think about the positive matchups that we've had with the history between the Detroit Lions and Dallas Cowboys. The other one that raises my main memories is when Rob Ryan, who is the defensive coordinator, called out Calvin Johnson in the week. This is 2011 or 12, somewhere in that area. I don't remember what year exactly, but he said he wouldn't be the third best receiver on our team. CJ went off on, if you remember, it's the highlight one where he's catching high balls. He's mossing people with 3 defenders around him. A former teammate of mine, Barry Church from Toledo, was the safety. Like, CJ literally went off. He had 200 yards, something crazy, and 3 touchdowns. I remember things like that in that stadium. We've had some great matchups, especially between these two teams. I do think there's going to be a lot of emotions because the Dallas Cowboys need a win bad. They need it in a bad way, and they have to show up at home. I think it was Walt who made that point. They've had bad losses at home. You do that again in front of Jerry and you embarrass him in Jerry's world, that's not going to end well for a lot of people within that roster, specifically Mike McCarthy, who's coaching for his job this year. So you look at what this builds up into, this is a great matchup. This is really one of the best games of the week. I'm really excited to see this matchup.
Yeah, Russell, what concerns you about this matchup? Anything, maybe the officials for sure, but we reported that the crew that's there has called the second fewest flags thrown this year. So potentially there's an opportunity for a more favorable situation, but clearly everyone's paying attention to, look, Terrion Arnold, Carlton Davis was pleading with the officials, let us play physical, let us play a little bit more than what's being allowed, so that the defensive backs are always going to try and maneuver to try and get a little bit more, because these wide receivers are bigger, faster, stronger, and the game is geared toward offense. What concerns you, Russell, about this game? What has you thinking, man, this could be something that could potentially be a detriment to the Lions?
I mean, you hit it right there. I mean, Terrion Arnold has a whole bunch of penalties. Carlton Davis has a couple of penalties. I don't want to see the referees take control of the game either way. Like, I hate it when it seems like the officials are controlling what the outcome is. And now, as far as the two calls, like between 2014 and what last year, from a fan perspective, it was last year because it was so close to the end of the game. Like, at least in that Dallas game from 2014, I mean, that was the third quarter, wasn't it? So it's like, I mean, they still had more chances to win, more chances to score more. So it's like the further it gets away from the end of the game, but that literally being on the second to last play of the game, that one last year hurt bad, because it's like, hey, get out of the game. Get out of the game. I don't want you controlling the outcome of the game, official. So that's probably the biggest concern. Maybe not any one person or another person. I don't want to see the referees have any kind of control. I want to just see a nice, clean game be played. And as far as Dallas being concerned with them as a team, Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb going off on us. I mean, we haven't proven, as the secondary, that we can stop badass wide receivers yet. We've had glimpses, but last time we played CeeDee Lamb, he took us to Spanky Town and changed the complexion of the entire game. So that's the biggest concern for me.
Walt, yeah, definitely we want to get your sense of what you've seen from Terrion Arnold. How do you think he's progressed? What does he need to do in this game against the Cowboys? Clearly, the point of emphasis for him is going to be, hey, less use of your hands, kind of be technically strong, but at a certain point, you can't be touching these receivers. Like, if you literally are in a spot where it's a battle, you got to be in position, you got to be technically sound. He's in stride, he's not getting torched, but he is reliant sometimes on his hands and sometimes is too handsy. What's been your assessment? Are you concerned about what he can bring to the table this go around, especially with some talented receivers that the Cowboys feature?
Yeah, I think at the moment, the main thing with him is he's going through what most young corners go through. When you get kind of overwhelmed, and I had a feeling this was going to happen with him, because I didn't feel like he was like really a top tier athlete like that. Sometimes when you get overwhelmed physically on that boundary, you start reaching too much, you start punching too much, you start grabbing a little too much, because now you're in a situation where you really can't trust your eyes either. So if you don't trust your athleticism, you're not trusting your eyes, best thing you can do is reach and grab. And that's pretty much what most of these corners do. His main thing is he has to learn how to start covering after 5 yards. You do what you can do within those 5 yards handwork wise. After 5 yards, you cover with your eyes and your feet. but that comes with him having a little bit of success. He needs an interception here or there. He needs a few more pass breakups for the most part. What I'm confident with him is the fact that he is confident. He doesn't look like Jeff Okudah. Jeff Okudah, when he got torched early, you could see him on the sidelines. He looked defeated. He looked deflated. He looked down. He was looking broken all the time. Terrion is still out there competing. He's getting those flags, but it's not stopping him from being aggressive. So that's what I'm happy about in general with him. Now, what kind of concerns me with Dallas is the fact that Dallas is streaky offensively. You know, Dak is streaky. Difference is this isn't the same good old Dallas Cowboys offense with a couple tight ends here and there and a Michael Gallup with a splash play here and there and this guy and that guy and Amari Cooper. This is not necessarily in contrast, but to credit what Russ said. I mean, this is CeeDee Lamb and Dak. But with the way this defense is set up, scheme-wise, philosophy-wise, not one quarterback and wide receiver is going to beat us. That's not going to happen. CeeDee Lamb can go out there and can have 220, and they may still lose by 3 touchdowns because that one guy isn't enough to really beat this defense anymore. It was 2-3 years ago, and I make this point consistently. You caught us when we were down. Buffalo caught us when we were down, kicked us in the teeth. New England caught us when we were down, kicked us in the teeth. Dallas, yeah, we were the laughingstock 3 years ago. Everybody caught us, kicked us in the mouth. Things are different now. We're better than Dallas. I don't see much Dallas could really do unless we go out and just lay an egg. If we go out and play our game, stay true to what we are as identity-wise as a team, there's no way they can beat us. Dallas has too much chaos going on right now. Health-wise, philosophy-wise, they can't get the run game going. They can't stop the run. That right there alone is a recipe for disaster. If you have no control of the line of scrimmage, you have no football team. And it looks like it right now. You know, and they're missing too many valuable guys. Then, you know, the Micah Parsons podcast, it seems like they're not happy with it. It's too much going on, man. It's too much. You got your guy Jerry Jones talking about CeeDee Lamb, and he doesn't care if it's lamb, steak, or bologna, and I'm not paying anybody. It's like, okay, it's too much going on. And Philadelphia, just keeping it strictly on Dallas. I think this team is too focused. They're coming off the bye. They've gotten healthy. They play better on the road, honestly. And I was telling someone earlier today, I'm more confident in this team going on the road and winning than I am with them at home. Honestly, because they first learned how to cut their teeth winning-wise by winning on the road 2 years ago. And it all started with that Green Bay game the final week of the season. So I'm confident they go into Dallas win. I was telling someone earlier today also, the Houston game doesn't really bother me because I get a feeling with this team now, the bigger the primetime game, they like being on the road. They stay true to who they are on the road also. I noticed that as well. They have a tendency, I don't know if they're riding the wave of the crowd when they're at home, they get kind of outside of themselves sometimes offensively. They have a tendency to stay true to who they are more so on the road. So I'm very confident in this team. I don't think they fall to Dallas. I just really don't. Unless they go out and just have lay an egg. And fresh off a bye, I don't see that happening either.
All right, now, Ted, I'm curious to see because we're going to talk about the offense for the Detroit Lions. Clearly, the offense picked it up against the Seahawks. Really a significant reason why the Lions were able to overcome the Seahawks and finally get a win. New coach, Mike Macdonald, clearly not the same as Pete Carroll, but I think he's going to do some great things. Clearly, the history of defense and what he brings to the table, I think he'll have success. But it's one of those games where the Lions offensively were able to take advantage of explosives, really rely upon the run game. And you saw clearly this identity of this football team as a gritty football team should be to run the football. David Montgomery, I mean, he basically bounced Devin Witherspoon off the turf. It was great to see. Everybody was really excited to see that. When you watch that, you just cannot help but just keep hitting the clicker and just watch him, Witherspoon, just bounce off of him, and then a simple play turns into an explosive. So it's great. But Ted, I'm curious, from what you've seen from Sam Laporta, do you see the potential lingering issue from what he's dealt with from training camp? Because everyone's kind of offensively, you're seeing Amon-Ra St. Brown pick it up. You've seen Jamison Williams, the two Running backs are starting to get into gear. The one guy that many people are wondering what's going on is Sam Laporta. Have you noticed anything different about him? Do you sense that potentially that injury that he suffered has impacted what he's been able to do? Or have you seen defenses kind of, clearly when they turn on the film, they're like, okay, we got to stop 87 too, because he can make the game messy pretty fast.
Yeah, I think that last point that you made right there, John, is, you're dealing with defensive coordinators that are some of the best in the world. And then obviously to reach the level that they're at, they have to be really good at what they do. They scheme it up pretty well. So when you look at it, who are you going to try to stop? You're going to try to stop the guys that really hurt everybody last year. So I think when you look at it from that perspective, Laporta's obviously, he's probably not at 100% from what we've seen in the past, but is a 95%. Sam Laporta, very, very capable to go ruin a game? Yes, absolutely. So I think you still have a weapon there. I do think that he's been isolated a little bit more defensively, but also to your earlier point, you have to be able to run the ball. You look at what David Montgomery did. That was unbelievable. It's one of the plays of the year already, and it happened in the first 5 weeks of the season. You look at what the Lions are going to be able to do, and Jared Goff played an almost perfect game. And how do you do that? You marry the run game to the pass game. And that's what really Ben Johnson has specialized, and that's what he's done. And that's also what Jared Goff has done, both really when he was in LA with Sean and now in this current offense with Ben. He really, really thrives on that play action game, being able to establish the line of scrimmage. And what better week to do it when they don't have Micah Parsons, who can wreck a game. They don't have some of their best players. You look at what they're capable to do right now. I think you might actually see a little bit more production from Laporta this week, because it's going to open up so many more things and so many more options. So, while there's frustration there and it's, why isn't he doing this? You have to look at it. There's 11 guys on the field. The offense is going to put the ball in the hands of the person that's open and going to have a productive play. And that's what Ben's going to do. He's going to scheme it up that way. And that's what Jared's going to do. From a check down perspective, they're going to make sure that they're staying ahead of the curve. You don't want to get behind the chains. If you're third and long in this league, it is incredibly difficult to get first downs and to control the play clock. So for the Lions, stay above it, stay ahead of the chains, continue to find those little hidden yardages that really make the difference at the end of the day. And I think you've seen that. So it's going to come. There's streaks. It's just a streaky league. As you go through it, there's going to be players that are very productive, and then they go away for a couple of weeks. But you're also going to see defenses key on some of those players. And I think that's what we're seeing with Laporta specifically.
No doubt. Russell, what are you seeing? Who do you think can also be a focal point of this offense? Do you see an opportunity? Because look, Dan Campbell's been asked about it a couple of times. He said, hey, maybe that Tampa strategy of us passing the ball, we thought that was going to be successful based on the playoff success, but clearly this football team looks like a team that's better when they use the run to set up the pass. Do you sense that that's the case? Pound the ball with David Montgomery? And do you see anybody else have an opportunity to have a breakout game? Because, too, Tim Patrick's kind of getting a little bit more involved. You saw a couple more passes to his way. I think that he's kind of getting a little bit more comfortable. Allen Robinson, a player that kind of is working his way into a couple more snaps here and there. So we'll see how the Detroit Lions use the offense moving forward. A plethora of weapons. It's great to see. But the offense kind of had a good game, but now they need to be consistent. You're muted, Russ.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, all right. Thank you. Tim Patrick. Yes. I think that is a great call out right there. We've been looking for that X receiver since it feels like since the beginning of training camp. They were waiting for somebody to step forward. Was it going to be Antoine Green? Yeah, there's my boys right there. Hey, Beavis. Anyway, but Tim Patrick has came in and he has been that guy. I mean, even though it's a short period, but Josh Reynolds last year, he didn't always have like 10 targets a game or anything, but he always made his targets count. And Tim Patrick seems to be slipping into that role, and he seems to be built in the way that they want that X receiver to be. He's 6'4". He's out there. He's willing to block somebody when he doesn't have the ball. So I think that Tim Patrick is a steal of a guy right there. And I don't know about Allen Robinson. I'm not out there at training camp and all the practices like you are, John. But I like what I've seen from Tim Patrick for sure.
Walt, what are your thoughts offensively? What's the key to this game to kind of keep the points rolling? You might have to, be in a situation where you got to put some points up again. This might be a Seahawks part 2.
Yeah, I think Jahmyr Gibbs could have a good game. Very good game against that Dallas front seven. Like I said, they don't do a good job of maintaining the interior of the offensive line. And once Gibbs, his main thing has been able to get to second level and then make that next guy miss. It's not as easy in the NFL as it was in college. Everything he was able to break for 60, 70 yards, we really haven't been able to see that so far as Lions fans since he's been in the league. He's right on the cusp of it, I believe, and I think he could have a breakout game against that track at Dallas.
I think clearly many of us are confident that the Lions have a strong chance to win this game. It's important. NFC opponent. You want to get this out of the way. You want to kind of get the, everyone asks me quite a bit, why do the Lions keep playing in Dallas? Well, soon they're coming. Dallas is coming to Ford Field soon, but it's just based on the way the teams have fallen, the annual schedule. So it's not a league conspiracy. This is based on the schedule and where the teams have fallen. It is unusual for the Lions to keep going to Dallas, but I'm taking an opportunity to get out there, flying out there Friday. I'm going to check out Jerry's World and see what's going on. And hopefully with Sports Illustrated in town, they can show out at 425, play a clean game, come back 4-1. Because if you don't, you got a problem, because these Minnesota Vikings have started off the year undefeated, and they're the talk of the NFL. You see Justin Jefferson, you see Kevin O'Connell and the work that he's done working with Sam Darnold. You lose your rookie quarterback and you just keep it rolling. Bringing in a veteran running back has sparked the team. Clearly this football team has, some motivation. They're playing very well. Coach O'Connell is somebody that's well respected and clearly has an offensive vision that can help. You got one of the best receivers in the game in Justin Jefferson. He's on 2 of my fantasy leagues. He's always a target. He's money, teaching me how to gritty. I'm doing my thing, and I've said it now, and I'll say it here. If the Lions win the Super Bowl, this guy will be grittying all over social media, and I got it locked down. I almost got the movements just like Justin Jefferson, so it might not be as crisp, but it'll look as fly. Ted, I'm curious. I know that you've coached with Kevin O'Connell. What is making these Vikings a pest to deal with, and how concerned should the Lions be? Because that's the concern of fans is like, okay, it was supposed to be the Lions division, but now there's a legit contender, and that's how way it's going to be. I think the every team in the division is over 500, and it's a group of teams that on any given Sunday can do some damage. Tell us a little bit about Coach O'Connell. What's he like? What's the deal over there? How big a threat? How much nerves should I have? How much whiskey do I need to drink when the Lions go to Minnesota and play these guys, because they look serious, and Justin Jefferson is a monster?
Well, how awesome is it that the NFC North is literally the best division in football? I mean, when you look at this, it's incredible what everyone is doing. I mean, the Chicago Bears, you never know any given Sunday and what Caleb's going to do to continue to develop. So I think the Lions, they need to be concerned with Minnesota. They are a legit contender. Justin Jefferson, in my opinion, is probably the best wide receiver right now in the game by far. I mean, I don't know who compares to him. He's drawing how many PI calls did he draw last weekend in London? I mean, you look at that, it's incredible. So Kevin O'Connell is a beast. He is a phenomenal play caller. But I'll say this, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. Culturally, the guy is a genius as far as understanding situational awareness. How do you push a team? When do you push them? I think Dan Campbell has this too, which is part to Walt's point earlier. Why do they play so well on the road? You have a passionate coach like Coach Campbell. He's going to get that team rallied, because sometimes when there's 70, 80,000 people screaming at you and it's you against the world, that team steps up and shows up. Not that you don't want the home fans, but when you're on the road and it's literally you against an entire city, state, there's something that bonds the team together. And I think that's what you're seeing with this gritty Detroit team. And that's awesome. I think that's going to serve them well as this year goes on, especially this week. But Minnesota, when you turn things there, Kevin has done a great job of putting a staff together too. There's multiple guys that I've worked with. There's a lot of players on that team that I've had. He has put the right people together, and they've done it systematically. It's taken time. Look at what he's done with Sam Darnold. It's not like they have, they don't have Patrick Mahomes, but they're building a system in place around Justin Jefferson, around the run game now, around the key personnel that they have, so that they can actually stress the defense. And then defensively, what have they done? Brian Flores is calling plays out of his mind right now. You look at what he's done. He's pressuring when he needs to. They don't have an insane pressure rate, but they're getting to the quarterback when they absolutely need to. They're shutting things down on the back seven. You look at how they're playing the run, but specifically the pass. They're doing a great job. And they're playing complementary football. Matt Daniels, who was on the staff with the LA Rams as their special teams coordinator, Matt's done an incredible job of getting those guys to play, because in special teams, it's passion, it's grit, it's who wants it more. You look at how they've done all these things. When I look at the Vikings, it's a truly complementary team. And I think you're seeing that because the leader, Kevin O'Connell, has done a great job of culturally establishing standards and norms, because he's really brought in the right people. And I think that goes top to bottom. But I would be concerned. I think it's going to be a fun division for sure, but it's going to be fun to watch Minnesota and Detroit as this season progresses.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, what's your concern level? You also concerned about the Packers? I know the Bears with their rookie quarterback, they had a nice performance, but you look at it and it's going to be up and down all year for Caleb Williams. And I do think that the Packers and Vikings are the two teams. And look, man, love the connection with Jaden Reed is just out of this world. It's just really crazy to think about. But it does seem like the main event is going to be the Lions and the Vikings this year.
Yeah, definitely. I think right now they're playing a little bit over their heads. You look at the talent on the roster. They got some young guys of the last couple drafts that are starting to really pan out. But for the most part, this is a team that went through a ton of tragedy over the offseason. Not only the horrible situation with the cornerback Kyrie Jackson out of Oregon, but losing your first round pick at quarterback to an ACL injury during preseason. I think they're kind of riding on the emotion a little bit, because when I look a little deeper into Minnesota, the defense, yes, I think the defense is something that's built to stay, something that they can really depend on and hang their hats on the rest of the season. Offensively, I think everything is kind of predicated off the big plays and the short fields that the defense is generating for them. As of right now, the Vikings are 6th in the league in average starting field position, but they're bottom half in passing yards. So it's a lot of big plays on that offense. You got 3 guys, and I believe Jalen Naylor, Jefferson, and Addison, 3 guys averaging over 16 yards per catch. And that's kind of insane. So you got to wonder, can they really keep that up? It's just, leading the league, not leading the league, but then they're bottom half in the league in turnovers, so they are turning the ball over as well. So I think if you look a little deeper into it, do we think Minnesota, what they have, is sustainable? That's where I'm kind of questioning it, because Green Bay, where the Packers aren't as good defensively as the Vikings, I think they're better offensively, just because I think Jordan Love is a much better player. And, the talent he has, the game-changing ability he has, some of those throws he made against the Rams last week, I think it's something that is really sustainable. So I wouldn't be surprised, even though the Vikings did beat the Packers 2 weeks ago, it wouldn't shock me if the Packers did eventually catch the Vikings, simply because I think at some point in time, the quarterback play is going to come into play. Jared Goff, we all believe Goff is probably the best quarterback, maybe not the most physically gifted quarterback, but I think we all believe at this moment in time, Jared Goff is the best quarterback in our division. Jordan Love is a close second, simply because he has the ability to change games, either with his legs or with his arm talent. Caleb Williams, he's still a baby right now, so I don't know how much we can really consider him. So Darnold, even though the Vikings are 5-0, if you're doing a truth meter, when it comes to who you have the most confidence in long term, I'm not so sure if Darnold may be the 4th in this division.
And that's remarkable too, is that, Sam Darnold is an individual that has, and it's so true based on fit. You could have all the talent in the world. You could have arm talent, speed, ability to throw. But if you're not surrounded with a great offensive line, a great coach that supports you, you're going to get yanked quickly. You've seen it now across the league where these guys don't get, you basically get 6 games. And if it's not popping, you're getting yanked. And it's wild. Just look at what happened with the Raiders now with O'Connell. I'm not sure why they just didn't stick with him. I know the veteran Minshew looked good at times, but I think that they should have just stuck with O'Connell and what he started to build last year. So it's interesting. It's unique. But Sam Darnold, the talk of the league, and you look at a quarterback that has been able to kind of, stay away from the big mistake. That's the one thing that all the fans are saying is like, oh, he's prone to the mistake. He's been consistent in that, hey, He's been close to that line, but he's walking up to it, but he's been playing within the parameters. And that's where I think age and experience comes in, where you're able to have more success. Russell, I'm curious, what do you think? Do you think it's the Vikings or Packers that are most concerning to you for the Lions? Who's the biggest threat to the Lions repeating as NFC North champs?
Well, I think this is the black and blue division, and the black and blue division is back. You got 4 teams with winning records, and my concern level, I mean, I don't know, maybe something with the Vikings. I don't want to say I told you so on my morning show, which you guys, by the way, any of you guys, anytime you guys want to pop on the morning show with me, which is the Lions Villain Report, you guys are more than welcome to come on there. But I talked about the Vikings at the beginning of the season as Sam Darnold, because all these Viking fans, they're about ready to jump off of a ship when they lost JJ McCarthy. Oh my gosh, the Rome is burning. Everything is. I'm like, listen, Sam Darnold's never been in a situation like this before. He was at a dumpster fire in New York, goes to Carolina, and you know how that's working out. And then he goes out, he plays backup in San Fran. This is the first real opportunity that he's had, and they got a great offensive line there in Minnesota. And that really is the biggest concern for me, is a team that can stand up physically with our team. But it doesn't raise my concern level too high, because even though I think that there's 4 teams in the NFC North that are maybe top 10 teams in the entire NFL, I still think that the Lions are the best team in the North.
I do as well. I think that when this season ends, it's going to be a hard-fought battle. But I think if the Detroit Lions are able to stay healthy, you see the clear talent on both sides, and maybe with a potential move here or there that Brad Holmes could make, you have an opportunity to you look at it, the Lions have played B- football, and they've still been able to win 3 games. And if they can stay healthy, then I think that with the running game, offensive line, it's all good. And I think there's a great opportunity for this football team to have success. It's a nice stretch where you have the Vikings, you have the Cowboys up ahead. These next couple games are going to be very relevant. One last topic that I think everybody's kind of talking about, but I'm most conflicted because I like Aaron Glenn. I like what he's about defensively. I like the improvements that he's made. I like the fact that these defensive backs are getting a little bit. I mean, the play of the secondary can always get better, but you're starting to see safeties that are going to be dominant for many years. Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph together are going to be legit. But there's a coach now out there that has been let go, and his talent is defense. And Robert Saleh was unceremoniously dismissed by the Jets. Now, I have an affinity for Coach Saleh, so I am a little biased, but I will say that the man is ferocious. The man literally held the Vikings to less than 20 points. The man can game plan. It's just head coach is different than running the whole operation is different than running one side of the football. Now, I'm just going to put it this way. If I don't wish any ill will toward Aaron Glenn or anything like that, but should Aaron Glenn find a great opportunity to be a head coach, maybe with the Jaguars, maybe with the Jets, maybe a different opportunity, do you think what Saleh brings to the table could fit here? Could the alpha defensive guy be an asset here in Detroit? Because it feels like a match made in heaven. And only in this scenario, we'll talk if Glenn moves on. Do you think Saleh slides right in and runs this defense to the point where, hey, this could be the final piece down the road for this defense? Because look, you look at it, you always got to look for the now and the future. Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn could both be gone. We got to look at next. And I think internally, maybe on offense, they stick there. But Robert Saleh seems like a Detroit Lion to me, in my opinion. What do you guys think? We'll start with Walt.
I think it's possible. You know, the moment he got relieved of his duties, that's the first thing I thought was maybe this town would instantly turn to that. I'm still not so sure Aaron Glenn's going to even be a head coach. It has a different feel around it every summer, every offseason than where it has around Ben Johnson. Legitimately, I think you get an honest feeling that Ben Johnson is going to eventually be a head coach. I think Aaron Glenn's been in the mix for so long that his name is just consistently still coming up. I'm just not so sure. And then you start forecasting some of the potential jobs. Would he want some of those potential jobs, honestly, if he's thinking about his full long-term future? So, yeah, I get the correlation with it. I think he's done a great job defensively with the Jets. I think that's what he was brought there to, honestly, be. He's had a ton of talent. You go back to San Francisco, those days when he was there, that San Francisco defensive roster was pretty loaded. Didn't have a lot of success before, but still the defensive roster was loaded. Could he make more of it with what we have here? I'm not so sure. I still think that some of the things we have, the issues we have defensively, have been due to injuries, especially not having a guy like Afiatu Melifonwu, a guy who I felt like could have brought a ton of more versatility to this defense. You're talking about pass rush wise in the box, what he can do in the deep quarters. So not having him hurts as well. Emmanuel Mosley, even though we still don't know what to expect out of Emmanuel Mosley, he gave us one quarter of football against Carolina last year. But when he was healthy in Frisco, he was a hell of a player. So, I just think that you look at his overall defensively, Aaron Glenn is finally starting to come around because he's finally starting to get some of the Warriors that he needed on his side of the football. So I'm pretty sure, I think he will still be here next year. Now, for Saleh, it wouldn't surprise me if Saleh actually took a year off or two off. There was some, I don't really want to get too deep into it, but there were some rumored stories around that entire Jet situation on why he was fired, maybe not having as much to do with football as people may think. But I just don't think if he's gonna jump at another spot, it'll be maybe next off season, not this one coming up.
Yeah, no doubt. Russell, I'm curious to get your sense of what you think of the defense. Is Aaron Glenn head coach material? But look, really, in the end, what doomed Robert Saleh was the fact that offense in his whole tenure was terrible. 32nd in the league. You can't run, you can't have you can't have one half of the football never get better. You're the head coach and you're responsible for bringing people. I think that once he lost control, I think of that, when LaFleur was let go, I think that you kind of are in a tough spot. You see control, and that's kind of some dynamics that don't end up working in your favor. And look, it's a win now league, and that's the way it is. Maybe he could take advantage of it, but I think Saleh will be back, no doubt about it. You just top 10 defense. Everybody in the league is looking for that, and I just think that first time opportunities and not in a non-ideal situation ends up kind of happening that way. But I just don't see any drawbacks. For me personally, I'm spoiled on both sides. I want him to come to the Lions or go to Michigan State. Go to Michigan State, run that defense, and get to the college game. Work these young minds and get them going as well. Russell, what do you think? Do you like the defense? Do you see Aaron Glenn as a guy that can be someone that could be? I'd see him as being an NFL head coach. I think he relates very well to the players. And I think with the Lions having success, if the Lions get to the Super Bowl, whether it be a winner or a loss, people are going to take a chance on Aaron Glenn. He's a leader of men, and the defense with talent you're starting to see are limiting most opponents to under 20 points. Bend, don't break in a perfect style, and violent physical. I like Aaron Glenn, and I think the scenario would end up typically being Glenn leaving for an opportunity. I think he's ready. He's ready. Both of them are ready.
Yeah, Aaron Glenn, I definitely think he's going to get a head coaching job somewhere. And as fun as Saleh would be to come here and be a coach, I just kind of believe in this Aaron Glenn next man up mentality. Every time a trade rumor comes up, oh, let's go get Max Crosby. Oh, let's go get Trey Hendrickson. I'm like, leave it alone, Mike. Has there been any evidence of that? There's no evidence that Brad Holmes would ever do anything like that. And if Aaron Glenn is to leave, then it's going to be Kelvin Shepard or it's going to be Terrell Williams. The next man up is going to jump into that slot because he knows the culture. He knows what we're all about. Those people from the outside, they're going to have to come in and learn what it is that we do here. So no, it's fun to entertain every name that comes through, but I mean that would be cool if they did it. I would be happy, but it just doesn't seem like that's in our DNA.
Very great point, Russell. I agree with you 100% in regards to the chances of an outside hire are not as great as an internal hire. It's very much so. I respect the people that say Kelvin Shepherd and things like that, but you got to look at it like, man, 49ers, Jets, their defenses are pretty good, experienced. So it's interesting. Ted, I'm curious your thoughts. Do you like what you see from the defense? You like what you see from Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, the secondary, and do you think that if Glenn leaves, is Saleh the guy that you would like to have here?
Yeah, once again, as they get these defensive players back and he's playing at full strength, you're going to see Aaron do what he does. And I think it was Walt who made the point. He's a leader. He's a leader of men. And as you look at him, that's one of the most important factors of becoming a successful head coach. So as you see this, owners are starting to understand the world's changing. You better bring a certified leader into that room if you want to hire a head coach. And Ben is that too. So the Lions, in effect, they could lose 2 coordinators this year and have to replace them. Now, I agree with everyone on the point where you want to keep it in the system. You want to keep it internal. You want to hire and promote from within. And if you're developing staff, you should be able to do that because they have multiple. Calvin, you have Terrell, you have a lot of people there that are capable to step up and take on that DC role, but you also have to look at a guy like Robert Saleh. What's the best talent available? It's the same way that you approach the draft. Who's the best player of it? Well, who's the best coach available? And I'll say this, we interviewed Robert Saleh. I was on our interviewing committee for head coaches in 2021 with the Eagles. So we're at our owner's house in Billionaire Row in West Palm Beach, and we're sitting there. Robert Saleh came and knocked everybody's socks off because he had a plan. He had a culture. He was a leader. You could see it. He was passionate. He had a plan. And when you look at his defenses over the past several years, going back to San Francisco days, he has been very productive. The guy's got Michigan ties. He grew up in Dearborn. He was Matt LaFleur's roommate at Central Michigan when they were both GAing for Brian Kelly. You look at the ties there, I think that makes sense. Would I say it's important to pass over the other guys that are internally qualified? I don't know. The thing that I would say I think limits Aaron Glenn's chances of becoming a head coach. He's a defensive coach. We were talking about it earlier on the call, I think before we hit record, but he is a defensive coach. It's so rare for defensive guys to get those opportunities. So I think you have to keep that in mind, but he's a great leader. He's a great guy. He has a phenomenal reputation. Players love him.
And that concludes that. This was a good eye candy for me. Just sitting back here, and Russ was helping produce, and Ted, like, you're awesome. Walt, you're awesome. And
Good.
Russ, you're awesome. You guys did an awesome show. Can we do this again? Can we do this again in the future?
Of course.
Yeah, I'm good.
Well, I'm speaking for myself, not everybody else. But, I do want to say one thing else about Saleh in regards to him kind of getting a raw deal. He fell victim to what a lot of first-time coordinators become head coaches fall victim to. He never got his quarterback.
Yep.
And his organization went from one end of the pendulum directly to the next. They went from super young with Zach Wilson, him washing out, to super old with Aaron Rodgers. And regardless how we may view Aaron Rodgers, I was having this discussion with Mark Orm a couple of days ago. I think Aaron Rodgers is washed in comparison to what we remember him as. I don't think he's the guy that can physically just win you games anymore. He needs to do it mentally. And he still thinks he's probably that guy that can physically do it. But a lot of how we view Robert Saleh right now is dictated off of what the quarterback situation was. Because if Zach Wilson pans out, we're not having this conversation.
Yeah,
That's
Walt,
the whole thing. Mike White probably never got a legitimate opportunity to be the starter there.
Yep.
Even though I don't think I've kind of put him and Tyler Heineke, guys like that in the same category. They're guys that they've got toughness and moxie, and they can win the locker room over and get you through a 3-game stretch, maybe a 4-game stretch. But do you want those guys to be your weekend out starters? Probably not. So I do believe, Saleh did his job, but the 7-10, the 7-10 record, and that's, even if it's not your fault as the head coach, the politics of the business will bury you. And I think that's really what happened with him. It was unfair because he wanted his quarterback to be there all offseason, and he wasn't. And it just felt like he was constant for a guy that had been there for 3 years already to just undermine him like that. It was terrible. And it's a testament to what the Jets have been for a long time.
That's why we're grateful here. I mean, honestly, it's like we've had so many bad years of Detroit Lions, just mishappenings and all these different things. And it's nice to actually have like the whole thing be, you know, the head coaching seems to be there. We got players, we got the GM is in place, and it just feels like everything's moving forward. And then when you see these things happen at other places, like you're like, oh gosh, to me, I just go, gosh, I'm just glad that's not us. I'm glad we're not going through some kind of quarterback controversy and all this nonsense happening, you know, behind the scenes. So yeah, for sure. And I saw Aaron Rodgers when he went there. If you remember, you know, when Peyton went to Denver, he wasn't asked to be the Peyton Manning of old there. He was just asked to, okay, we got a really good defense. Just don't turn the ball over, manage the game. I think that's what they wanted out of Aaron, and they're just asking him to do too much. They got a great defense. Run the damn ball with Breece Hall. Yep. I mean, for crying out loud, run, Forrest.
It's a great point, Russ. And I think Walt hit it earlier too. When he was forced to fire Mikey LaFleur, that was a big deal. When you look at that, because he had built his staff, he trusted Mikey, he had a great relationship, still does with Matt. That's a big deal. So did the pressure come down from Joe Douglas, from Woody John? I don't know. I'm not inside that building, but the pressure came from somewhere because that was kind of a quick decision. So you start to see that, and then you see the Aaron Rodgers thing come in. But I love your point, Russ, too. When you have that type of a defense, build the running game, build the offense in a way where you can sustain, control the play clock, and then you can ultimately let your defense go out there and do what they do and help you win a championship. Man, I don't necessarily think that they did that. So it's an unfortunate situation. Once again, he's got 7 kids. He's a great human from that standpoint. He's a good dad. I mean, I feel bad that just changed their lives. They got to move. So it's a tough business from that, but that's what you sign up for.
So my
Doesn't
question
it seem
is
strange though that the Jets historically have always drafted pretty good defensive players.
Mm-hmm.
Offensive players haven't been too good at all. Offensive players acquired through free agency haven't been pretty good at all.
Yep.
Defense, they're great.
Williams and Sauce, man. I'll take those guys on my team. Wow, those guys are awesome.
I think they fell victim to like what a lot of those defensive head coaches do. Also, they leaned on the defense for too long. You can only lean on a really good defense for maybe 2 or 3 years before guys start to break down.
Right.
Too many snaps. They're on the field, too many snaps because the offense can't maintain any drives.
Yep.
Guys start leaving in free agency. Guys start declining. You have one bad draft, man, and that can set everything back 2 or 3 more years. So, yeah, he got a raw deal. I think he definitely got a raw deal, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens in New York with Rodgers moving forward because that city doesn't care.
Yes.
No.
You're not one of their own. I've seen that city destroy their own. So if you're Aaron Rodgers, don't think that they give you didn't win that Super Bowl in New York. You won it back in Green Bay. And that fan base, New York and Philadelphia, those are 2 of the meanest cities I've ever been through.
He's looking rough too, man. Like when you see him with it's like, man, at least get some like gray off or something on that beard. It's like, come on, man. Don't make it so damn obvious.
Well, tell him to lift a weight or something, man. Like I'm sick of his uniform. He looks like a 40-year-old guy imitating a high school quarterback in a movie.
I bet I could throw that ball over that mountain, Walter.
It's like, come on, man. Like, do something. 220? That dude's not 220, man.
No chance.
He's listed as that dude can't be 220.
That's like WWE 220.
Yes.
Oh,
Parts unknown.
college numbers. By college numbers, Aaron Rodgers is actually 6'4.5".
So do you guys want to finish off promoting yourself? We have Russell Wayne with the Villains squad of 54,000. I think he was asking Ted if you wanted to come on his show, and Walter has a pretty good show too. I'm telling you, these guys are one of the top podcasters out there.
Well, we're the UDFAs of podcasting. You know, we ain't got any fancy stuff or anything like that, but we do have the grind. And you know, I'm there every day on on my channel at 10 a.m. Monday through Saturday. And you're more than anybody. I mean, you want to talk some football? Let's get on there and chop it up. And I may be a little more entertaining on there than I am on here.
Shut up, Russell.
Hey, no, that's all right. I mean, this is your studio in here. I got all my bells and whistles in my studio when I go live. But I appreciate you giving me the time to promote myself. Thank you, Darcy.
Thank you, Ted. You're a pleasure. I love when you come on. This is great. Can you come on next Wednesday? Entertain all these Detroit Lions fans after we smoke Dean Blandino in that party bus.
I got stories for days on Blandino. Yeah, I should be good next week. And absolutely, Russ, I would love to at some point. We'll jump on there. It'd be good. I appreciate it. Same thing, YouTube channel at Ted Rath Strength Coach. Got a book coming out here soon. Should be in the next couple months. All that stuff on all socials. So reach out anytime. Try to get back to you as fast as I can. But truly appreciate it, Darcy. This is awesome. Walt, Russ, been great as always. John, I know he's not on here, but this is fun, man. It's a fun team to follow too. This is I love the city. Obviously, I grew up there, but it's just fun to see the city of everything that's going on with the Tigers, with the Lions. There's a lot of excitement right now. I just love it for the city.
Well, let's kick it off here then.
They know me already, Darcy. I'm here.
Well, we just went to the game. We got this. He had to sit beside me, or I got to sit beside Shanti, but that was good. That was good. All right, let's finish it off there. Woo-wee. Let's go. God damn it. There it is.